The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the small, dilapidated house that had once been a sanctuary for a family filled with laughter and love. Now, it was a mausoleum of memories, a place where dreams had decayed and trust had been shattered. Charles Morgan, a man of 62, stood in the living room, his heart heavy with the weight of betrayal. He had always been the quiet type, the kind of man whom people overlooked, assuming he had nothing of value to offer. But beneath his unassuming exterior lay a mind sharp as a blade, a reservoir of knowledge and resources that remained hidden from the world around him. His daughter, Jasmine, had always been his pride and joy, a brilliant young woman with a promising future ahead of her. She had been the light in his life, the reason he had fought through every struggle. But that light had flickered and dimmed, replaced by a darkness that consumed her. The moment he discovered that she had hired a fake nurse, one of those slick, deceitful characters who lurked in the shadows of desperation, his heart had shattered like glass underfoot. "Dad, it's just a little bit of money," she had said, her voice dripping with false innocence. "I promise I'll pay it back. I just need some help right now." But it wasn't just money she was after. It was his home, the very foundation of their lives together. The documents lay on the table before him, forged signatures and lies that threatened to strip away everything he had worked for. His throat tightened as he recalled that moment, the look in her eyes, a mixture of desperation and something darker, something that felt like betrayal. This was not the daughter he had raised. This was someone consumed by greed and desperation, a stranger wearing her face. A wave of anger coursed through him, but he pushed it down, deep into the recesses of his mind. Rage would not serve him here. It would only cloud his judgment. Instead, he took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill his lungs, grounding him in the present. He needed to think, to plot his next move with the precision of a chess master. Jasmine believed she had won, that she had outsmarted him, but she had no idea what lay beneath the surface. In the corner of the room, a dusty old trunk sat, a relic from his past. It had belonged to his father, a man who had taught him the value of patience and the power of knowledge. Charles approached it slowly, his fingers tracing its worn edges. He had always kept his father's legacy close to his heart, but now it felt like a lifeline, a thread connecting him to a time when things were simpler. With a firm grip, he lifted the heavy lid, revealing a trove of memories, photographs, letters, and documents that spoke of a life well lived and lessons well learned. Among them was a small, weathered book, its spine cracked and pages yellowed with age. It was a journal filled with notes and reflections, detailing not just his father's life, but also the wisdom he had imparted to his son. Charles had always thought of himself as an ordinary man, but within these pages lay the seeds of something extraordinary. A trust fund, a legal strategy, a way to reclaim his dignity without resorting to anger or violence. But first, he had to play his part. He had to allow Jasmine to think she had the upper hand, that her betrayal had succeeded. He envisioned the scene, her laughter ringing in his ears as she signed away his home to a fraudulent nurse, the look of triumph on her face as she believed she had outsmarted her father. He would let her revel in that moment, for it would only make the fall that much harder. Days turned into weeks, and Charles wore the mask of a broken man with a quiet grace. He moved through the motions of life, nodding at neighbors, attending church, and keeping his head down. But beneath this facade, a storm brewed. He was gathering information, plotting his next move with meticulous care. The fake nurse would soon discover that she had overplayed her hand, that the game was far from over. Each night, he would sit alone in the flickering light of his living room, the shadows dancing around him as he contemplated his next step. He had contacted the authorities, but not to report Jasmine's actions. No, he would save that for later. Instead, he had gathered evidence, meticulously documenting every interaction, every lie told. It was a slow burn, a deliberate strategy that required patience and resolve. Then, one evening, as he sifted through the remnants of his father's legacy, he stumbled upon a letter that sent shivers down his spine. It was addressed to him, written in his father's elegant script. The words spoke of a hidden trust, a resource that had been set aside for a rainy day, meant to protect the family in times of crisis. Charles felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. This was the key he had been searching for, the leverage he needed to turn the tide. With newfound determination, he began to unravel the intricacies of the trust, piecing together the legal framework that would allow him to reclaim his home. But this was not just about the house. It was about teaching Jasmine a lesson, about showing her the consequences of her actions. He would not simply give her a second chance. He would make her earn it, forcing her to confront the darkness that had taken hold of her heart. As the days stretched into weeks, the tension between them grew. Jasmine, unaware of her father's hidden resources, continued to push her agenda, believing she had ensnared him in a web of deceit. But Charles was patient, biding his time, waiting for the moment when she would sign the confession that would seal her fate. He envisioned that day, the way she would look at him, the realization dawning on her face as the truth unraveled before her. He would wait for her to sign the confession, and when she did, the world as she knew it would come crashing down. It was a game of chess, and he was determined to be the last one standing. With each passing moment, he felt a sense of clarity wash over him. This was not only about revenge. It was about redemption, about reclaiming his dignity and teaching his daughter that every action has its consequences. The slow burn had begun, and soon, the flames would engulf everything she had built on the ashes of his trust. The morning light spilled through the cracked window panes of Charles Morgan's small, dilapidated house, illuminating the dust motes that danced lazily in the air. Each ray felt like a reminder of the life that once thrived within these walls, like a memory of laughter and warmth, now faded into shadows. Charles stood by the kitchen table, the scarred wood cool beneath his fingers, as he contemplated the gravity of his situation. The smell of stale coffee lingered, a bitter reminder of sleepless nights spent wrestling with the betrayal of his own flesh and blood. Jasmine had always been the bright spark in his life, a beacon of hope that had dimmed into something he barely recognized. Now, she was a specter of greed, cloaked in the guise of her father's love, wielding deceit like a weapon. Charles's heart tightened at the thought of her hiring that fake nurse, an embodiment of everything he despised. He could still picture the woman's unsettling smile, the way it twisted his gut. It was a mask, a facade that concealed the rot of moral decay beneath. He took a deep breath, the air heavy with resolve. Today was the day he would begin to weave his plans into action. He had spent countless hours piecing together the fragments of his father's legacy, the hidden trust that glimmered like a lighthouse in the fog of betrayal. Charles could not allow Jasmine to claim what was rightfully his, nor could he allow her to continue down this treacherous path unchecked. The clock on the wall ticked rhythmically, a persistent reminder of the time he had left to act. He recalled his father's words, the lessons imparted during their long talks in the fading light of dusk. "Integrity, Charles," his father had said, his voice gravelly with age. "It's all we have in the end. Protect it fiercely." The weight of those words pressed down on him now, igniting a flicker of determination within his chest. With each passing moment, his plan crystallized. He would confront Jasmine on her terms, allowing her to believe she still had the upper hand. He needed her to sign that confession, to trap her in her own web of lies. The thought sent a rush of adrenaline coursing through him. It was a game of chess, and he intended to be several moves ahead. Charles moved to the small living room, where the sun streamed through the filmy curtains, casting a golden glow over the worn furniture. He sank into the tattered armchair, its fabric frayed but familiar. Closing his eyes, he allowed memories to wash over him. Jasmine's laughter as a child, the way she would race through the house, a whirlwind of energy and innocence. It felt like another lifetime, a world untouched by the harsh realities that now defined their relationship. But as the images faded, so did the warmth, replaced by the cold grip of betrayal. He opened his eyes, steeling himself against the wave of emotion that threatened to pull him under. He could not afford to dwell on the past, not now. He had to focus on the present, on Jasmine and her schemes, on the fake nurse and the impending confrontation. The door creaked open, and Charles's heart leapt as Jasmine entered the house. Her presence a jarring contrast to the stillness that had enveloped him moments before. She was dressed in a crisp white blouse and dark jeans, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. The facade of confidence was evident in her posture, but he could see the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes as they darted around the room, searching for signs of weakness. "Dad," she greeted, her voice bright yet strained, as if she were performing a role rather than engaging in a genuine conversation. "I hope you've been taking care of yourself." The sweetness of her tone grated against his nerves, setting his teeth on edge. Charles forced a smile, a brittle mask to hide the turmoil beneath. "Just trying to get by, Jasmine. What brings you here today?" She hesitated, the pause stretching between them like an elastic band ready to snap. "I wanted to talk about the house. The repairs are piling up. It's getting harder to manage." Her eyes flickered with a hint of desperation, a subtle plea disguised beneath layers of practiced indifference. "Repairs?" he echoed, tilting his head as if considering her words. "I believe you've been managing just fine with the help of that nurse of yours." The jab hung in the air like a sudden chill, and Charles watched as Jasmine's expression hardened, her mask slipping ever so slightly. "Her name is Lisa," Jasmine snapped, the edge in her voice sharpening the edges of their conversation. "And she's been a tremendous help. You wouldn't understand." "Wouldn't I?" Charles leaned forward, his heart racing. "You think I don't know exactly what's going on here? You're playing a dangerous game, Jasmine. Hiring someone to forge documents, to deceive me." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle like lead. "Do you even realize what you're risking?" Her eyes narrowed, a flash of anger igniting in their depths. "I'm not risking anything. I'm trying to secure our future. Don't you care about that?" The desperation in her voice tugged at something deep within him, a flicker of the daughter he once knew. "Your future should not come at the cost of your integrity," he countered, the intensity of his emotions spilling over. "This isn't just about the house. It's about who you are becoming." For a brief moment, silence enveloped them, a fragile stillness that felt as if the world was holding its breath. Charles searched Jasmine's face for signs of the daughter he loved, but all he saw was the hardened mask of a stranger. "I'm not becoming anyone, Dad. I'm doing what I have to do," she replied, her voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of fear. "And if that means making tough choices, then so be it." "Choices?" he said, shaking his head in disbelief. "You're choosing deceit. You're choosing to betray your own father." The accusation hung heavily between them, a chasm that seemed impossible to bridge. Her expression shifted, a storm brewing behind her carefully crafted facade. "You don't understand. You never did. I've been trying to make something of myself, to take control of my life. What do you know about my struggles?" The words struck him like a physical blow, and for a moment he was taken aback. He had always believed in her potential, nurtured her dreams, and yet here they stood, two people on opposite sides of a battlefield, each fighting for their version of the truth. "I know that you're better than this," he replied softly, the urgency in his voice giving way to a deeper, more profound concern. "You don't have to do this alone. You can still turn back. But you must be honest with yourself and with me." Jasmine's gaze faltered, and for a fleeting moment, he saw a flicker of doubt cross her features. "What do you want me to say, Dad? That I'm sorry? That I regret it?" She shook her head, the defiance returning like a shield. "I won't apologize for wanting a better life." Charles sighed, the weight of their conversation pressing down on him like a heavy shroud. It's not about apologizing, Jasmine. It's about understanding the consequences of your actions. You're playing with fire, and eventually you're going to get burned. As the words fell from his lips, he felt the truth of them settle in the pit of his stomach. He needed her to see the precipice upon which she stood, to recognize the abyss that awaited her if she continued down this path. But would she listen, or was she too far gone, ensnared by her own ambition? "I have to go," Jasmine said abruptly, her voice tinged with a mix of frustration and defiance. She turned toward the door, the distance between them widening with each step. "I'll handle things my way, Dad. You don't need to worry about me." "Jasmine!" he called after her, desperation clawing at his throat. "Please, just think about what I said." She paused at the threshold, her back to him, and for a moment he thought she might turn around, that she might reconsider. But then she shook her head and stepped outside, the door swinging shut with a finality that echoed through the empty house. Charles sank back into the armchair, the weight of despair settling over him like a heavy fog. There was no escape from the reality of their fractured relationship, and yet he felt a flicker of hope, an ember of resolve that refused to be extinguished. He had a plan, a way to expose the truth, and he would see it through. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the room, Charles began to gather his thoughts. He would not allow Jasmine to continue down this destructive path without facing the consequences. The trust hidden away in his father's name would serve as both a shield and a sword, an opportunity for redemption and a means to reclaim his dignity. He grabbed a pen and paper, his heart racing with anticipation as he began to draft a letter that would lay the groundwork for the confrontation to come. This was not merely a battle for a house. It was a fight for his daughter's soul, and he would do whatever it took to bring her back from the edge. Charles Morgan stands in the dim light of his living room, the shadows dancing on the walls like ghosts of memories long past. The air is thick with the scent of faded wood and the lingering traces of jasmine, a cruel reminder of his daughter's name. The walls, once adorned with photographs of a happier time, now seem to close in around him, amplifying the weight of betrayal that sits heavy on his chest. He feels like a relic in a museum of his own life, surrounded by echoes of laughter that have long since turned to silence. He glances at the old grandfather clock ticking rhythmically in the corner, each tick a reminder of time slipping away. The clock strikes 6, and with it, a sense of urgency prickles at his spine. Jasmine had left him with more than just a fractured relationship. She had left him with a plan he must now enact. He can almost hear her voice, filled with conviction, claiming she was doing what was necessary for her future. But what future awaits her if built on lies? Charles moves to the small desk in the corner, cluttered with papers and old bills. He sifts through the documents, searching for the forged papers Jasmine had left behind. Each one feels like a dagger, piercing through the trust he had once held for her. He finds the contracts, the signatures that he once believed were a symbol of their bond, now a tapestry of deception. His fingers tremble as he clutches the papers, anger boiling beneath his skin. Yet, it is not just anger he feels. It is a profound sadness for the daughter he once knew, the girl who would sit on his knee, dreaming of a world where integrity mattered. His resolve hardens. He will not let Jasmine's choices define him. He will gather the evidence, expose the truth, and, if necessary, reclaim his home. But as he plots his next move, he cannot shake the feeling that he must also reach out to her, if not for reconciliation, then to remind her of the principles he had instilled in her. Perhaps, if he plays the right cards, he might still salvage what remains of their relationship. With the forged documents tucked safely in his pocket, Charles steps outside, the cool evening air biting into his skin. The neighborhood is quiet, the only sound coming from the rustling leaves and the distant bark of a dog. He walks slowly, contemplating his next steps. He needs allies, someone who can help him navigate the labyrinth of deceit Jasmine has built. As he wanders down the familiar streets, memories flood back. Of pushing Jasmine on the swing in the park, of teaching her to ride a bike, the pride swelling in his chest as she took off on her own. But those memories are entwined with the present, a cruel juxtaposition of what once was and what now is. The streetlights flicker to life, casting long shadows that stretch before him, mirroring the uncertainty that looms over his heart. He reaches the small diner at the end of the block, a place where he used to take Jasmine for milkshakes after school. The neon sign buzzes like a wounded insect, flickering in the dusk. He steps inside, the bell above the door announcing his arrival. The familiar smell of coffee and fried food wraps around him like a comforting blanket, and for a moment, he allows himself to linger in nostalgia. "Hey Charles, long time no see." The voice of Grace, the waitress, breaks through his reverie. She stands behind the counter, wiping her hands on a stained apron, her smile warm and genuine. "What can I get you?" "Just a coffee, Grace. Black, please." He takes a seat at the counter, the cool metal of the stool grounding him as he contemplates his plan. "Coming right up," she replies, pouring the coffee with practiced ease. "You look like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders. Everything all right?" He hesitates, considering whether to confide in her. Grace has always been a good listener, a comforting presence in this small town where everyone knows each other's business. But he doubts she could understand the tangled web of family betrayal he's caught in. "Just family troubles," he finally admits, his voice barely above a whisper. She nods, her expression softening with sympathy. "If you need to talk, I'm here. You know that, right?" "Thanks, Grace. I appreciate it." As he takes a sip of the steaming coffee, he feels the warmth spread through him, a momentary balm for his troubled soul. He scans the diner, his gaze falling on a couple at a nearby table, their laughter ringing out like a melody. A pang of longing strikes him. Would he ever share such joy with Jasmine again? Could they ever return to that place of understanding? He shakes his head, dispelling the thought. This is not about longing for the past. It is about reclaiming his future. As he finishes his coffee, determination surges within him. He decides to pay a visit to Mrs. Thompson, the elderly woman who lives across the street. She had been a nurse for decades and might have valuable insights into the world of healthcare. If anyone could help him understand the implications of Jasmine's actions and the fake nurse's credentials, it would be her. After thanking Grace and leaving a few crumpled bills on the counter, Charles steps back into the cool evening air. The sun has dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a canvas of deep blues and purples, the twilight sky a stark contrast to the turmoil within him. As he approaches his home, he pauses, staring at the front porch. The peeling paint and sagging steps tell a story of neglect, much like the relationship he once cherished with Jasmine. He takes a deep breath, steeling himself for the confrontation he knows is coming. The fake nurse, the woman who had willingly donned the mask of deception, had become a pawn in Jasmine's game. He needs to find out how deep the roots of this deception run. Mrs. Thompson's home is a few doors down, a quaint cottage with a white picket fence that seems to stand firm against the ravages of time. He knocks on the door, and after a moment, it creaks open to reveal the familiar face of his neighbor. "Charles, how lovely to see you." Mrs. Thompson's eyes sparkle with warmth, the wrinkles around her mouth deepening as she smiles. "What brings you here this evening?" "Good evening, Mrs. Thompson." He steps inside, the comforting smell of lavender and old books enveloping him. "I'm hoping to get your opinion on something personal." "Of course, dear. Please, take a seat." She gestures to a plush armchair, and he sinks into it, feeling the softness embrace him like a long-lost friend. "I've discovered some troubling things about my daughter, Jasmine." He begins, his voice steady but laced with the weight of his worries. "She's involved with a nurse who I believe is not legitimate. I need to know what I should look for, how I can protect myself and her. Mrs. Thompson's expression shifts, a shadow crossing her features. Oh, Charles, that's a serious matter. You need to be cautious. The world has become a much darker place than when we were young. As they delve deeper into the conversation, Charles finds himself both comforted and challenged by her insights. She shares stories from her years in nursing, experiences that blend caution with compassion. He learns about the signs of fraud, the ways in which a caregiver can manipulate their role for personal gain. Each word she speaks sharpens his resolve, igniting a fire within him. Remember, Charles, she says, leaning forward, her voice low and earnest. You cannot lose your heart in this fight. If you do, you risk becoming what you despise. He nods, absorbing her wisdom like a sponge. I won't forget that, he replies, realizing that the path ahead will require not just strategy, but also a moral compass that remains steadfast in the face of deceit. As he leaves her home, the weight of his plans settles back onto his shoulders. He has gathered the tools he needs to confront Jasmine and the fake nurse. But deep within, he knows that the hardest part will be navigating the emotional battleground that lies ahead. The night air is cool against his skin as he walks back home, and for the first time in days, he feels a flicker of hope. The battle is far from over, but he is ready to fight for what is right, for himself, for Jasmine, and for the relationship they once shared. Tomorrow would be a new day, one filled with possibilities, and he would be prepared to face whatever came next. The old clock in the hallway ticks steadily, its sound echoing in the silence that envelopes Charles Morgan's dilapidated home. Each tick is a reminder of the time slipping away, each talk a pulse of urgency that resonates with his racing heart. He stands in the dim light of the living room, shadows dancing along the peeling walls, where remnants of family photographs hang like ghosts of a happier past. Today, however, those memories feel tainted, sullied by Jasmine's betrayal. His resolve crystallizes as he clutches the envelope containing the trust documents, the ink still fresh, a lifeline in a sea of deceit. The trust, an unexpected gift from his father, holds the power to restore not just his financial security, but also the fragile thread of his relationship with Jasmine. He must confront her and the fake nurse, not out of vengeance, but from a desperate need to salvage what remains of their bond. Charles takes a breath, steadying himself against the weight of anticipation. He can almost hear Jasmine's voice, sharp and defiant, echoing in his mind. But there's another sound that pierces through, the faint, practiced laugh of the fake nurse, a sound that sends a shiver down his spine. He knows he must act quickly. The longer he waits, the deeper Jasmine will plunge into the abyss of her choices. Jasmine, he calls out, his voice steady, though laced with unspoken fear. He steps toward her room, the floorboards creaking beneath him like old bones protesting against the weight of the truth. Just a minute, she replies, her voice muffled, tinged with annoyance. He hears the rustle of papers, the shuffle of movement. What is she hiding now? As he approaches, the door swings open, and there stands Jasmine, her hair disheveled, eyes darting as if searching for escape. A flash of defiance flickers across her face, but beneath it lies something else. Anxiety, perhaps even guilt. For a moment, he sees the child she once was, the girl who would run to him with scraped knees and tear-streaked cheeks, seeking comfort and safety. But that girl is buried beneath layers of betrayal and desperation. Dad, She starts, but he interrupts her. Save it, Jasmine. We need to talk about the nurse and the documents you forged. His voice is firm, but the tremor in his hands belies his calm facade. At the mention of the nurse, her composure falters. What do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. Her denial feels like a thin veil, stretched too tightly over a truth she cannot escape. The fake nurse you hired. I know everything. He steps closer, feeling the walls of his own resolve beginning to close in around him. I know about the forged documents, Jasmine. I found them. Her expression shifts, a mixture of anger and desperation flickering across her features. You have no idea what you're talking about. She snaps, but the tremor in her voice betrays her. I know more than you think. You're making a mistake, and I can help you if you let me. His heart races, a wild drumbeat echoing in his chest, urging him to reach out to her. She crosses her arms, a defensive posture that physically separates them. Help me? By telling me I'm wrong? By trying to take away what's mine? Yours? He repeats, incredulous. You think this house, this mess, is it really yours? It's your home, yes, but it's also a part of our family's history. You're throwing it away for what? A few dollars. Jasmine's eyes narrow, and he catches a flash of something dark. A glimpse of greed that has overtaken the daughter he once knew. You don't understand. You never did. Her voice rises, filling the small space with tension, turning the air thick with unspoken words. His thoughts drift momentarily to memories of their past. Summer picnics by the river, evenings spent laughing over board games, the way she would rest her head on his shoulder, safe and sound. What happened to you, Jasmine? You were so talented, so full of promise. You could have done anything. That was before, Dad. Before you lost everything. She throws her hands up, frustration spilling over. You don't know what it's like to struggle, to watch everything you care about slip away. A silence hangs between them, heavy and suffocating. Charles feels the weight of her words, each one a stone cast into the depths of his heart. He knows the truth of her struggles, the financial burdens that have pressed down on them since his retirement took away not just his job but his sense of purpose. Yet, he also knows that desperation doesn't justify her actions. Struggling doesn't mean you can betray your own family, he says, his voice low, his heart aching. I'm trying to reach you, Jasmine. I want to help you find a better way. Help? By confronting me? By waving around some papers like they mean everything? She scoffs, but the defiance in her tone falters. You think those papers will save us? They might save you from yourself, he replies, a hint of desperation creeping into his voice. You're caught in a web of lies, and I want to pull you out before it's too late. Just then, the door swings open wider, revealing the fake nurse. Her uniform crisp, a smile plastered on her face that feels more like a mask than genuine warmth. Everything all right in here? I heard some raised voices. Jasmine's expression shifts, her anger dissolving into a facade of innocence. We were just discussing some family matters, she replies, her voice smooth and practiced. Charles feels his stomach churn. This woman, this imposter, stands between him and the truth, a barrier he must dismantle. You're a liar, he says, his voice steady as he faces the nurse. You've taken advantage of my daughter's weaknesses. You need to leave. The nurse's smile falters, replaced by a glint of something cold, calculating, predatory. Now, Mr. Morgan, she says, her tone condescending. That's quite an accusation. I'm here to help your daughter. She's been through so much. Help her. He shakes his head, disbelief coursing through him. You're here to exploit her vulnerabilities, to feed off her desperation. I won't let you. Dad, stop. Jasmine interjects, her voice sharp. You don't understand what she's done for me. You're just jealous because you're losing control. Control? This isn't about control. It's about love. It's about protecting you from making a grave mistake. His heart races as he struggles to keep his emotions in check. The nurse steps closer, a predatory gleam in her eyes. The truth is, Charles, Jasmine is an adult. She can make her own choices, and I'm merely providing her with the means to do so. Means? He scoffs, his anger boiling over. You're nothing but a wolf in sheep's clothing, and I'm not going to let you drag her down with you. Then what do you plan to do? She challenges, a smirk playing on her lips. Call the police? You think they'll believe you over Jasmine? She's the one who's been struggling, not you. You're just a bitter old man holding onto the past. Her words cut deep, but Charles finds his footing, recalling the trust, the lifeline his father left behind. You're right about one thing. I won't let this go. I have something that will put an end to this charade. Jasmine's eyes widen, the defiance flickering. What are you talking about? Something that will show you both the truth. He takes a step back, feeling the weight of the envelope in his pocket. A secret weapon against the lies that threaten to consume them. I'll give you both one last chance to make the right choice before I reveal everything. The tension in the room shifts, the air thick with unspoken possibilities. Jasmine's gaze darts between him and the nurse, the conflict within her palpable. What do you mean? But before he can answer, the nurse interjects, her voice dripping with disdain. You're bluffing. You have nothing. Just an old man grasping at straws. Charles meets her gaze, a flicker of determination igniting within him. You underestimate the power of family, and you'll soon learn just how far I'm willing to go to protect what's left of mine. He turns away, leaving the room filled with silence, uncertainty hanging like a storm cloud above their heads. The confrontation has only just begun, and the battle for his daughter's heart and their home has only just begun. Outside, the sun begins to set, casting long shadows across the yard. The fading light is a reminder of the urgency pressing down on him. He knows he must act swiftly before Jasmine is pulled too far into the depths of her deception. As he steps outside, the cool evening air washes over him, invigorating and bittersweet. He can't afford to let this moment slip away. With the trust in hand and the weight of his father's legacy behind him, he feels a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead is fraught with uncertainty, but one thing is clear. He will fight for his daughter, reclaim their bond, and expose the truth lurking behind the facade. The battle lines are drawn, and as the sun dips below the horizon, Charles Morgan steels himself for the confrontation that will determine the fate of their fractured family. The morning sun peeked through the tattered curtains, casting a muted glow across the dust-laden furniture. Charles Morgan stood by the kitchen window, his fingers resting on the cool, wrought iron sill as he stared out at the overgrown yard, a tangle of weeds that mirrored the chaos in his heart. He had spent the night piecing together the fragments of his life, the remnants of his father's trust, and the darker threads woven into Jasmine's recent choices. The air felt thick with unspoken tension, a silence that pressed against him like an unwanted embrace. Today would be the day. He could feel it in the marrow of his bones. He would confront Jasmine, not with the rage he had bottled inside, but with the calm, meticulous strategy he had honed over years of disappointment. He turned away from the window, glancing at the clock hanging crookedly on the wall. Time was slipping away, and with it, his resolve to protect Jasmine from the abyss she was hurtling toward. The fraudulent nurse, her name still lingered in his mind like a bitter taste, had wrapped herself around Jasmine's vulnerabilities, feeding off her desperation like a parasite. As he made his way to the living room, memories flickered through his mind like old film reels, each frame a reminder of the daughter he once knew. Jasmine with her bright, eager smile, her laughter filling the air, the two of them building a fort out of couch cushions on rainy afternoons. Those days felt like lifetimes ago, now eclipsed by shadows of betrayal and greed. He settled into his worn armchair, the fabric rough against his skin, and closed his eyes for a moment. In that stillness, he envisioned Jasmine's face, the mix of defiance and sorrow that had marred her features in recent weeks. She had chosen a path lined with deception, but he was not ready to let go of her yet. The front door creaked open, pulling him from his reverie. Jasmine stepped inside, her presence filling the space like a sudden gust of wind. She looked disheveled, hair pulled back hastily, eyes darting as if she were searching for something or someone. "Dad," she called, her voice an uncertain whisper. "Are you here?" "I'm in the living room," he replied, his tone even, betraying none of the storm brewing within. She entered, hesitating at the threshold, her gaze sweeping over the room as if she were assessing the battlefield. "I thought we could talk," she said, her voice tinged with an edge that made Charles's heart tighten. "Talk," he echoed, leaning forward in his chair. "About what, exactly?" "About everything that's been happening." Her fingers fidgeted with the hem of her shirt, revealing the cracks in her bravado. "I know things have been tense between us." Tense is one way to put it. He allowed the words to hang in the air, heavy and unyielding. "You've made choices, Jasmine. Choices that hurt me. And yourself." She flinched, the tremor in her chin betraying her composure. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just thought." "Thought what?" he interrupted, the fire of frustration igniting in his chest. "That you could forge my signature and rob me of my life? What was it supposed to accomplish, Jasmine?" "I needed money," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "I thought I could fix things. I thought." "Thought what?" he repeated, his heart pounding in his ears. That embracing greed would somehow lead to happiness? Silence settled between them, a chasm filled with unuttered truths and buried regrets. Jasmine's eyes glimmered with unshed tears, and for a fleeting moment, Charles felt the weight of his own words. He wanted to reach out, to comfort her, but the betrayal had formed a barrier thicker than glass between them. "I'm not the enemy here," she finally said, her voice trembling. "I was desperate. I thought the nurse could help us." "The nurse?" he echoed, his brows knitting together. "This is about more than just money, isn't it?" Her gaze dropped to the floor, the guilt palpable in the air. "I didn't know she was a fraud at first. She seemed so trustworthy. She understood my struggles. Or she manipulated them," Charles countered, his mind racing. "Didn't you stop to think that maybe she was playing you? That she was feeding on your vulnerabilities?" Jasmine's shoulders slumped, the fight leaving her. "I thought I was being smart. I thought I could outmaneuver everything. I didn't want to feel helpless anymore." A flicker of understanding washed over him, softening the edges of his anger. He remembered his own moments of desperation, the way he had clung to hope like a lifeline when his father's health began to falter. But he had never resorted to deceit. "Jasmine, you have to see that this path leads nowhere good. It only brings pain and betrayal." "I know," she admitted, her voice cracking, "but I don't know how to fix it." Charles leaned back in his chair, his heart heavy with the weight of her admission. Perhaps there was still a chance to guide her back before the darkness consumed her entirely. "You need to confront this nurse. Find out who she really is and how deep this deception runs. It's not too late to turn back. Confront her." Jasmine's eyes widened, disbelief mingling with fear. "What if she retaliates?" "She will if you let her," he replied, his voice firm. "But if we work together, we can expose her. I found something my father left for me, a trust that could protect us. But I need you to be honest with me. Can I trust you?" The air between them shifted, a fragile thread of hope weaving through the tension. Jasmine's expression softened, the defiance fading into something more vulnerable. "You mean the trust? I didn't know about that." "No, you wouldn't," he said, the bitterness creeping back in. "You were too busy chasing your own desires. But now we can use it. We can rebuild." She hesitated, a storm of emotions flickering across her face. "And what if I fail again?" Charles leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You won't. Not if you choose to fight for what's right. You have to choose integrity over greed. It starts today." In that moment, he saw a glimmer of the daughter he had once known, buried beneath layers of confusion and despair. Hope surged within him, a fragile yet defiant flame. "Okay," she finally said, her voice steadying. "I'll do it." I'll confront her. As the words left her lips, Charles felt a shift in the atmosphere, a cautious optimism threading through the air. Perhaps this was the moment they could reclaim their lives together, a fragile truce forged from shared pain and renewed purpose. Let's set a plan, he said, his voice resolute. We'll gather evidence and find a way to expose her. Jasmine nodded, determination blooming in her eyes. Together, together, he echoed, a smile breaking through the lingering shadows. As they began to strategize, Charles felt a warmth spreading through him, a sense of purpose igniting the remnants of his spirit. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but for the first time in what felt like an eternity, there was hope. The battle would be daunting, but they would face it as a family, united against the darkness that sought to tear them apart. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, Charles felt a flicker of his old self, the father who believed in second chances, the man who still dared to hope. Together, they would reclaim not just their lives but their bond, piece by fragile piece. The air in the small, dilapidated house felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were suffocating under the weight of unspoken truths. Charles Morgan stood in the dim light of the living room, his heart racing in a frantic rhythm. Jasmine had agreed to confront the fake nurse, a flicker of hope igniting within him, yet the shadows of betrayal loomed large. He glanced at the tattered armchair where he often found solace, its faded fabric a reminder of better days. Now, it was merely a ghost of comfort, taunting him with memories that felt like echoes of a life long lost. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his voice strained as he turned to Jasmine, who stood at the threshold of the kitchen, her brow furrowed in uncertainty. She hesitated, the confidence that had once defined her now reduced to a flickering flame. "I don't know, Dad. What if she's right? What if I'm too far gone?" Charles stepped closer, the distance between them a chasm filled with unarticulated feelings. "You're not too far gone, Jasmine, but you have to want to change. You have to believe that you deserve better than this charade." The words hung between them, charged with the weight of their shared history. The laughter, the late-night talks, the dreams he had once woven for her future. "But she's been so convincing," Jasmine murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if I'm just chasing shadows?" "Sometimes shadows are all we have to guide us," he replied, recalling a lesson from his father, a man who had faced his own demons with a stubborn resolve. "But you need to confront the truth. It's the only way to reclaim your life." With a resigned sigh, Jasmine nodded, her shoulders slumping slightly. "Okay, let's do this." As they prepared to face the nurse, Charles felt the familiar pang of nostalgia wash over him. He remembered the day Jasmine graduated high school, her laughter ringing like a sweet melody in the air. She had been so bright, so full of promise. But now, the bright-eyed girl he had known seemed lost in a fog of desperation and poor choices. It was a pain he felt deep in his chest, a dull ache that reminded him of how fragile their bond had become. "Do you have the documents?" Jasmine asked, her voice breaking through his reverie. "Yes, I've kept them safe." Charles reached into his jacket pocket, fingers brushing against the folded papers, the remnants of his father's trust. They felt like a talisman of hope, a lifeline that could pull both him and Jasmine back from the brink. "If we can catch her in her lies, we can turn this around." "Let's hope that's enough," she replied, her voice trembling with uncertainty. As they stepped outside, the sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. The world felt different, more vibrant, as if on the cusp of transformation. Yet, within him, the shadows of doubt lurked, whispering unkind thoughts about Jasmine's ability to reclaim her integrity. The fake nurse's apartment was a stark contrast to their dilapidated home, a sterile space that radiated an unsettling order. Charles felt a shiver run down his spine as they approached the door. He could hear the faint hum of a television inside, a droning sound that masked the true nature of what lay within. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice steadier than he felt. Jasmine took a deep breath, her eyes glistening with a mix of fear and determination. "As ready as I'll ever be." Together, they knocked, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the stillness. A moment passed before the door swung open, revealing the fake nurse, her smile as disarming as it was deceptive. Clad in scrubs that seemed too pristine for the crumbling apartment, she radiated a false sense of authority. "Ah, there you are," she chirped, her voice sweet as honey, yet laced with an undercurrent of something sinister. "I was just thinking about you, Jasmine. Come in, come in." Charles exchanged a glance with Jasmine, a silent agreement passing between them. He stepped inside, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. The room felt stifling, the air thick with the scent of antiseptic and something else, something that felt like deceit. "What brings you both here?" the nurse asked, her gaze flicking between them, calculating. "We need to talk," Charles said, his voice steady. "About the documents you forged." The nurse's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, but she quickly recovered, her facade more polished than ever. "Forged? Oh, Charles, you must be mistaken. Everything was done legally and ethically." She gestured to the neat stack of papers on the coffee table, each one meticulously organized. "I have all the necessary paperwork right here." Charles stepped closer, his hands trembling slightly as he picked up the documents. He scanned their contents, the carefully crafted lies glaring back at him. "These are fake," he asserted, his voice firm. "You manipulated my daughter into believing this was the only way out for her." Jasmine shifted beside him, a flicker of realization crossing her face. "How could you do this to me?" she asked, her voice breaking. "You took advantage of my desperation." The nurse's expression hardened, her mask slipping just enough to reveal the predator lurking beneath. "Desperation is a powerful motivator, Jasmine. But you were the one who sought my help. You wanted a way out, and I provided it." Charles felt a surge of anger, a flame igniting within him. "You preyed on her vulnerabilities. You exploited her when she was at her lowest." "Enough!" the nurse snapped, her voice suddenly cold. "You have no idea the lengths people will go to survive. I merely offered her a solution." A tense silence enveloped the room, charged with unspoken accusations and buried fears. Charles could see the conflict raging within Jasmine, the battle between trust and betrayal reflected in her eyes. He reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder, grounding her amidst the storm. "Jasmine," he said softly, "this is your chance to reclaim your life. Don't let her control you anymore. You have the strength to fight back." The nurse watched them with a predatory glint, her smile now a tight line. "You think this little charade will save you? You're in deeper than you realize." Jasmine squared her shoulders, her resolve hardening. "I'm not afraid of you anymore. I see you for what you are. A fraud." With those words, a shift occurred in the room, like the first crack of ice in a thawing river. The air felt charged, electric, as if the very foundations of the house were trembling beneath the weight of their confrontation. "Is that so?" the nurse replied, her voice dripping with disdain. "You'll regret this choice, both of you. I have connections, and I won't be easily cast aside." "Let's see what your connections can do against the truth," Charles replied, his voice steady, a newfound confidence surging through him. "You've underestimated us." In that moment, Jasmine stepped forward, her voice ringing with a clarity that cut through the tension. "I'm done hiding behind your lies. I want to be better than this." The nurse's expression darkened, the facade crumbling like a house of cards. "You'll regret this, child. You don't know the danger you're inviting into your life." "Or perhaps," Charles countered, "the danger is already here, and it's time we confront it." As the tension reached a breaking point, Charles felt the weight of his father's trust in his pocket, a tangible reminder of the legacy he was determined to uphold. He turned to Jasmine, who stood at the precipice of change, her eyes glistening with a mix of fear and hope. "Together, we can take this back," he said, his heart swelling with a fierce determination. "We'll expose her for what she truly is." Jasmine nodded, her earlier uncertainty replaced by a dawning strength. "Together?" she echoed, and for the first time in a long while, Charles felt the fragile threads of their relationship weaving back together, stronger than before. The nurse's eyes narrowed, but the confidence in Charles's voice held firm. He could see the wheels turning in her mind, calculating her next move, but he was ready. They would face whatever came next together, united against the darkness that had threatened to tear them apart. As they walked out of the fake nurse's apartment, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the street. A sense of renewal blossomed within Charles, like the first blooms of spring breaking through the frost. They had chosen to confront their fears, to reclaim not just their home but their dignity and trust. With Jasmine by his side, he felt fortified against the coming storm, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The road to redemption would be long and fraught with obstacles, but for the first time in a long while, he believed they could navigate it together. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the cluttered living room of Charles Morgan's small, dilapidated house. Dust motes danced in the fading light, suspended like fragile memories in the air. Charles sat in his worn armchair, the upholstery frayed and faded, a testament to years of use, much like himself. He stared at the stack of papers on the coffee table, evidence of Jasmine's betrayal, whispers of deceit that had infiltrated the very fabric of their family. He could still feel the tremors of disbelief running through him, the sharp edge of betrayal cutting deeper with each passing moment. The confrontation with the fake nurse had rattled him to his core, but it was Jasmine's face, etched with desperation, yet flickering with remnants of the daughter he once knew, that haunted him. He had hoped for clarity, a glimmer of the bond they once shared, but instead, he had found only a chasm wider than he ever imagined. Outside, the neighborhood buzzed with the sounds of evening life, children's laughter, the distant thrum of lawnmowers, and the gentle rustle of leaves stirred by a soft breeze. But inside, a suffocating silence enveloped Charles, broken only by the occasional creak of the old house settling. He picked up a photograph from the table, a faded snapshot of Jasmine as a child, her face aglow with innocence and joy. He traced her smile with his finger, a bittersweet reminder of the girl who had once clung to him like a lifeline. "Where did I go wrong?" he whispered to himself, his voice barely rising above the whisper of the wind. He set the photograph down, memories flooding his mind, her laughter echoing in the corners of their home, the way she would run to him after a scraped knee, eyes brimming with tears but quickly replaced by bright smiles. Those moments felt like fragments of a life that had slipped through his fingers, like sand in an hourglass. Charles closed his eyes, allowing the memories to wash over him. He recalled a time when he and his father had sat in this very room, discussing dreams and aspirations, a flickering candle illuminating the paths they envisioned. His father's voice had been steady, filled with a wisdom that only a lifetime of struggles could impart. "Life will test you, Charles," he remembered his father saying, "but it's how you respond to those tests that defines you." The words hung in the air, a tether to the past that anchored him in the present. He had always prided himself on being a man of integrity, yet here he was, embroiled in a battle of wits with his own flesh and blood. The thought stung, igniting a fierce determination within him. He would not let Jasmine's misguided choices define their story. He would reclaim their narrative, not through anger or vengeance, but through understanding and resolution. With renewed clarity, Charles stood up, the creaking of the chair breaking the silence. He shuffled to the kitchen, where the light flickered overhead like a heartbeat, illuminating the remnants of a life he was determined to reclaim. The evidence he had gathered lay scattered across the table. Emails, forged signatures, records of payments made to the fake nurse. Each piece was a building block in the fortress of truth he was constructing, a stronghold against the chaos that threatened to consume them both. He took a deep breath, allowing the scent of old wood and lingering spices to fill his lungs. The kitchen, once a hub of laughter and shared meals, had become a battlefield, but it was also the place where he could forge a new path. He needed to confront Jasmine again, to break through the barriers of resentment and fear that had risen between them. She had to understand the gravity of her actions, the implications for both of them. Just as he was about to gather his thoughts and head out, he heard the front door creak open. Jasmine stepped inside, her silhouette framed by the fading light, casting a long shadow that danced across the floor. Charles's heart twisted at the sight of her. Her posture slumped, eyes downcast, as if the weight of the world lay heavy on her shoulders. "Dad," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Jasmine," he replied, his tone a mixture of warmth and caution. He could see the struggle within her, the internal battle between the daughter he loved and the stranger she had become. I came to talk," she stammered, stepping further into the room. The tension hung thick in the air, a palpable force that both repelled and drew them closer. "Then let's talk," he replied, motioning toward the worn-out sofa. "Sit down." She hesitated for a moment but then sank onto the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Charles took a seat opposite her, the distance between them feeling like an abyss. He studied her face, searching for the spark of the girl who had once filled his life with light. What he found instead was a storm of emotions swirling beneath the surface: fear, shame, and a flicker of something that resembled hope. "I'm sorry," she began, her voice trembling. "I didn't know what else to do. I thought I could fix everything." "By hiring a fake nurse?" he interjected, the words spilling out before he could stop them. Anger flared within him, but he quickly tempered it, reminding himself of the importance of patience. "Jasmine, you're risking everything we've built. This isn't the answer." "I was desperate," she shot back, her voice rising, the rawness of her emotions spilling forth. "You don't understand. I just wanted to make sure we wouldn't lose the house. I thought if I could just get a little help, maybe things could go back to normal." "Normal?" Charles echoed, disbelief lacing his tone. "What you've done is anything but normal. It's a betrayal of everything we've fought for, everything your grandfather believed in." He leaned forward, his heart pounding in his chest. "You're better than this, Jasmine. I know you are." Tears glistened in her eyes, reflecting the fading light. "I don't want to be this person, Dad, but I feel lost. I thought I could solve everything on my own, but it just made everything worse." Her voice cracked, and for a moment, the walls she had built began to crumble. Charles's heart softened, a flicker of understanding igniting within him. He remembered the countless times he had felt lost, the ache of uncertainty that had accompanied him through life. "You're not alone in this, Jasmine. You never have to be. But you have to be honest with yourself and with me." Silence enveloped them, thick and heavy, as Jasmine struggled to find the words. Charles could see the internal battle waging within her, the desire to cling to her misguided choices and the yearning to return to the daughter he once knew. He reached across the chasm between them, his hand resting gently on hers. "Let's figure this out together. But you need to help me understand why you felt you had to take such drastic measures." Jasmine's breath hitched, and for a moment, he thought she might pull away. Instead, she leaned into the warmth of his touch, her fingers intertwining with his. "I was scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I was going to lose everything. The house, our family, I didn't want to see you struggle anymore. And I thought this was the only way to protect you." Charles's heart ached at her admission. "You thought you could protect me by putting us both in danger?" he asked gently. "Jasmine, We can face struggles together. I want to help you, but you need to trust me." As the shadows deepened around them, Jasmine's resolve began to crack. "I don't want to keep lying," she confessed, her voice trembling. "I want to fix this, Dad. I really do." Charles felt a surge of hope wash over him, a flicker of warmth illuminating the darkness that had enveloped their relationship for so long. He knew their path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but perhaps, just perhaps, they could find their way back to each other. Then let's start by confronting the truth. Together, as they sat in the dim light, father and daughter, a fragile bridge began to form, a connection forged through honesty and vulnerability. The weight of betrayal still lingered in the air, but in that moment, amidst the echoes of the past, they took the first tentative steps toward healing, determined to reclaim their narrative and restore the bond that had nearly been lost. The morning sunlight seeped through the tattered curtains of Charles Morgan's small, dilapidated house, casting fractured patterns on the floor. Each ray felt like a reminder of the hope he once harbored for his family. Today, however, the light did little to chase away the shadows in his heart. Charles stood in the kitchen, the smell of stale coffee hanging heavily in the air, as he prepared for the confrontation that loomed ahead like an impending storm. Jasmine had finally returned home late last night, her face pale and drawn, the weight of her choices etched into every feature. He had heard her stumble through the door, the sound like a fragile echo of the girl she once was. Now, she was a stranger wrapped in desperation and deceit, and he had no idea how to reach her. In the deep recesses of his mind, he replayed the moments he had spent with her, clinging to the memories of laughter and joy that felt so distant now. As he poured himself another cup of coffee, the warmth of the liquid slipping through his fingers, he couldn't shake the feeling that today was different. Today marked the final act in a play that had spiraled beyond his control. He needed to confront Jasmine about the fake nurse, to peel back the layers of her misguided choices and expose the truth hidden beneath her bravado. His heart raced as he recalled the trust he had unearthed, the last remnant of his father's legacy, sitting in a dusty envelope on the kitchen table. It was a sliver of hope, a promise of stability, but it was also a weapon. He could use it to leverage a change in Jasmine's heart, to remind her of the integrity that once defined their family. But how could he ensure she would listen? How could he make her understand that the path she walked was paved with peril? The sound of a door creaking open drew him from his thoughts. Jasmine entered the kitchen, her hair tousled and eyes still heavy with sleep. She hesitated as she caught sight of her father, their gazes locking for a brief moment. In that instant, Charles saw the flicker of fear in her eyes, a reflection of the turmoil that had become her constant companion. "Morning," she mumbled, her voice barely above a whisper, as she moved to pour a cup of coffee. "Jasmine," he began, his tone steady yet laced with the tremor of unresolved emotions. "We need to talk." She froze, the coffee pot hovering above her cup, and he could see the tension coiling in her shoulders. "About what? The nurse? I've already told you. I'm handling it." "Handling it?" he echoed, disbelief coloring his voice. "You think hiring a fake nurse is handling anything? You're putting everything at risk. Jasmine, your future, our home, our trust. Don't you see that?" She finally turned to face him, her expression a mix of defiance and vulnerability. "I had no choice, Dad. You don't understand what it's like to be in my position. I needed help, and she was the only one who would even consider it." "Help?" he scoffed, frustration boiling beneath his skin. "You call this help? She's a con artist, Jasmine. She isn't here to help you. She's here to exploit you. Can't you see that?" Jasmine's lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I thought she could help us. I thought maybe she could fix things." "Fix things?" he repeated, his voice rising. "This isn't a game, Jasmine. You're playing with fire, and we both know how that ends. You have to confront what you've done before it consumes you." "Stop!" she shouted, the sound reverberating off the worn kitchen walls. Just stop. I don't need a lecture. I need you to understand. Charles took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm the storm within. Then help me understand. What led you to this? You were never like this, Jasmine. You used to be so full of promise. Her gaze dropped to the floor, and for a moment, he saw the little girl she once was, lost beneath the weight of her choices. I just wanted to fix everything, Dad. I wanted to make it better for us. But everything I do just makes it worse. The air between them thickened with unspoken words and raw emotions. Charles stepped closer, the distance between father and daughter narrowing. What if I told you there's a way out? You don't have to keep going down this path. You can come back from this. Come back? She scoffed, a hint of bitterness creeping into her voice. What do you want me to do? Admit I'm a failure? Because that's how I feel right now. You're not a failure, Jasmine. You're lost, and it's okay to admit that. But we can find our way back together. Just let me help you. She looked up at him, searching his face for something she could hold on to. But as the silence stretched, he could see the flicker of doubt. And what if I can't? What if I'm too far gone? No one is too far gone, he said, his voice firm yet gentle. I've been there myself. I know what it feels like to be trapped in despair. But we can fight this. You just need to trust me. As if in response to his plea, the doorbell rang sharply, slicing through the heavy atmosphere. Both of them turned toward the sound, a shared glance of trepidation passing between them. Charles's heart raced, uncertainty clawing at him. This could be the fake nurse or worse, someone else who could add to their troubles. I'll get it, he said, his voice steady despite the unease that churned inside him. He moved toward the door, mentally bracing himself for the confrontation that lay beyond. As he opened the door, a wave of cold air rushed in, and he was met by the sight of the fake nurse standing on the doorstep, her smile wide yet hollow, as if she were a mask hiding something sinister. "Good morning, Mr. Morgan," she chirped, her voice dripping with false cheer. "I was just in the neighborhood and wanted to check on Jasmine. Is she home?" Charles's instincts flared, and he felt a surge of protectiveness for his daughter. "She's not feeling well today," he said firmly, stepping into the doorway to block her entry. "I think it's best if you leave." "But I'm here to help," she insisted, her tone shifting slightly, like a snake uncoiling. "Jasmine needs me. She's been under so much stress. I can help her navigate this situation." "Help her?" he echoed, his voice low and measured. "You're the reason she's in this mess. You've been exploiting her vulnerabilities, and I won't let you continue to do that." Her smile faltered for just a moment, revealing the underlying frustration simmering beneath her facade. "You don't know what you're talking about. I'm a qualified nurse, and I'm here to do what's best for Jasmine." At that moment, Jasmine appeared behind Charles, her expression a mix of surprise and dread. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice faint. "Nothing, sweetheart," Charles replied, but his eyes remained locked on the fake nurse, who was now shifting her weight, trying to regain control of the situation. "It's all right, Jasmine," the nurse said, her voice smooth as silk. "I just wanted to check on you and see how you were feeling. Your father is just being overprotective." Jasmine's gaze flickered between them, confusion clouding her features. "I'm fine. Really." "No, you're not fine," Charles interjected, his patience wearing thin. "This woman is lying to you, Jasmine. She's not here to help. She's here to take advantage of your desperation." The tension crackled in the air, a fragile standoff between father, daughter, and the embodiment of deceit standing on their threshold. For a heartbeat, it felt as if time had frozen, the weight of their choices pressing down on them like a heavy fog. "Dad, please," Jasmine said softly, her voice trembling. "Can't you just give her a chance?" "No," Charles's voice rang out, firm and unwavering. You need to see her for what she is. You're at a crossroads, Jasmine. Choose wisely. The nurse, sensing the shift in power, straightened her posture, her smile returning, but now it felt more like a threat than a comfort. You're being dramatic, Mr. Morgan. I'm only here to help. Perhaps you should consider the impact of your words on your daughter. Charles stepped forward, his resolve hardening. I'm not afraid of you. I won't let you manipulate us any longer. You're done here. The nurse's eyes flashed with something dark, a glimmer of anger breaking through her carefully crafted persona. You'll regret this, Charles. I have ways of ensuring that you and your daughter don't get what you want. Then so be it, he replied, his voice steady. I'm prepared to fight for my family. You won't win this battle. With that, he closed the door firmly, sealing the fake nurse out of their lives, for now. He turned to Jasmine, who stood rooted in place, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and uncertainty. Jasmine, he said, his voice softer now, we need to talk about this. I want you to trust me. We can face whatever comes together, but you have to allow me to help you. Tears brimmed in her eyes, and for the first time, he saw a flicker of realization spark within her. I don't know what to do, Dad. You start by being honest with yourself, he said, reaching out to take her hands in his. Let's face this together. We can find a way out of this darkness, but only if you're ready to fight for it. As their fingers intertwined, a fragile thread of hope wove between them, a promise that perhaps, just perhaps, they could emerge from the shadows of betrayal and deceit. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but together, they would navigate the path toward redemption and reclaim the trust that had been so painfully fractured. The morning light streamed through the grimy kitchen window, illuminating the dust motes that danced lazily in the air. Charles Morgan stood at the counter, his hands trembling slightly as he cradled a chipped mug of coffee. The rich aroma filled the space, momentarily masking the stale scent of regret that clung to the walls. He glanced at his reflection in the window, the lines etched on his face deepening with each passing day, each betrayal weighing heavily on his heart. Today was the day. He felt it in his bones. The tension that had been simmering between him and Jasmine was reaching a boiling point, and he couldn't ignore it any longer. He had to confront her, had to make her understand that there were consequences for her actions. But deep down, a flicker of hope sparked within him. Perhaps this confrontation would lead to redemption, for both of them. As he took a sip, the bitterness of the coffee mirrored the bitterness in his heart. He thought of Jasmine, her once bright eyes now clouded by desperation. He remembered the sparkle they used to hold, the dreams they shared. Those memories felt like distant echoes now, drowned out by the cacophony of her choices. He shook his head, trying to dispel the fleeting shadows of doubt. He had to believe that she could still find her way back. A sudden knock at the door jolted him from his reverie. It was a sharp, insistent sound, followed by the creak of the old hinges as he opened the door. There stood Jasmine, her face pale and drawn, the weight of the world evident in her posture. A wave of conflicting emotions crashed over him. Relief, anger, love, and disappointment, all swirling together. "Dad," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can we talk?" Charles stepped aside, motioning for her to enter. "We need to talk," he replied, his tone firmer than he intended. As she stepped into the living room, he caught a glimpse of the papers clutched tightly in her hands. They looked familiar, the same forged documents that had sent his heart racing with fear and anger. "Is that?" He trailed off, struggling to keep his composure. "Is that what I think it is?" She nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I didn't mean for it to go this far, Dad. I thought I could fix things." "Fix things?" Charles echoed, incredulity lacing his voice. "You thought hiring a fake nurse would fix things? You were willing to throw away everything we've built for a quick fix?" Jasmine flinched at his words, the sting of his disappointment evident. I was desperate. You don't understand what it's like to feel so helpless. She took a step toward him, her voice cracking. I thought I was protecting us. I thought I was doing what was best. Best for whom? He snapped, his frustration boiling over. You were only thinking of yourself. This doesn't just affect you, Jasmine. It affects me. Our home, our family. The weight of his words hung heavy between them, silence stretching taut like a bowstring ready to snap. Jasmine's shoulders sagged, her resolve crumbling under the weight of his gaze. I know I messed up, Dad. I really do. But the fake nurse, she made everything sound so easy. Charles's heart twisted at her admission. He could see the conflict raging within her, the remnants of his little girl battling against the woman she had become. What did she promise you? He asked softly, his anger slowly giving way to concern. Money. A way to pay off the debts, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't want to lose the house. I thought, if I just signed a few papers, it would all work out. Jasmine, he said, stepping closer, his voice thick with emotion. It's not just about the house. It's our lives. You're risking everything for a lie. She looked down at the documents in her hands, her fingers trembling as she clutched them tightly. I thought I could make it work. I thought I could fix things without you knowing. Fix things? He repeated, his voice rising again. This isn't fixing. This is destruction. You're tearing apart the very foundation of our family. In that moment, Jasmine finally looked up, her eyes meeting his. There was a flicker of realization, a moment of clarity amidst the chaos. I just wanted to be someone you could be proud of, she confessed, her voice cracking. I wanted to help you, not hurt you. Charles felt his heart ache at her words, the vulnerability in her confession cutting through the anger that had clouded his judgment. Jazz, you don't need to do anything to earn my pride. You're my daughter, and I love you. But love comes with honesty, and you've betrayed that trust. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she took a step back, the weight of her choices crashing over her like a tidal wave. What do I do now? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. He hesitated, searching for the right words. You need to confront the fake nurse. You need to take responsibility for what you've done. And you need to sign those documents. Sign the confession of what you did. But I'll lose everything, she cried, her voice rising in desperation. The house, my future, everything I've worked for. Is it worth it? He asked, his voice low and steady. Is living a lie worth more than your integrity? More than our relationship? She remained silent, her eyes locked on the papers, the weight of his question hanging heavy in the air. Charles could see the battle within her, the desire to hold onto the illusion versus the yearning to reclaim her dignity. I can help you, he continued, his tone softening, but you must be willing to help yourself first. This is your chance to start over, to make things right. Jasmine's shoulders shook as she fought against the tide of emotions crashing over her. What if I can't? What if I can't face her again? You're stronger than you think, Charles said, stepping closer. Remember when you were a kid? You faced your fears head-on. Like that time you climbed that big tree in the backyard. You were terrified, but you did it anyway. You have that strength in you still. Her breath hitched as she recalled those carefree days, her father cheering her on from the ground. The memory felt like a lifeline, pulling her back from the abyss of her despair. Okay, she whispered, her voice trembling but resolute. I'll do it. I'll confront her today. A sense of relief washed over Charles, but he knew this was only the beginning. The road to redemption would be long and fraught with difficulty. I'll be there with you, he promised, his heart swelling with a renewed sense of hope. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, they shared a fragile smile, a flicker of the bond they once had. The journey ahead would be uncertain, but in that moment, they stood together, ready to face the storm. As they prepared to leave the house, the shadows of the past lingered, but the promise of a brighter future glimmered on the horizon. Charles felt a sense of purpose, a determination to reclaim not just their home but their relationship. And as they stepped out into the world, he clung to the belief that redemption was possible, even in the face of betrayal.